Well, well, brother. I just started it, so we got about 3 minutes. So you can't hear anything now. I'll just know when it clicks on me. But I'm going to start with the intro to the show. And yeah, just speak towards the mic. Other than that, I had some people submit some questions for this to do. And we already got some people that were like, I'm not fucking listening to this conspiracy bullshit. I appreciate you being the one guy in the room around the mask right now, calling all the rest of us crazy.
Right. Exactly. I'ma raise mine up to be healthy and strong. It'll be my name coming out they mouth. When they get ass, when they learn they burn out. I'm talking about, I'ma keep it real from the get-go. Let them know if they ever need a hand, I'm the only place they go. I don't blame the kids for acting out the way they do. I blame new shit, I used to do the same thing too. I'ma do things different than my pops used to do. Picking up my kids from school, doing sports and homework. They like video games like their daddy do. I taught my oldest how to swim in the pool. I just show my youngest how to run his name too. Talking about some bigger things, some adult things too. Teach him how to be weak, teach him how to be a fighter. Show him the real meaning by being and do so. And in this world, you will always come from an asshole. Let them know the family first, never lie, never put your in a second to a sad. Never give up on your dreams, yeah, that's like it. Reach for the stars, it's only you determine how far you get. What kind of life you live, you need to pay more attention to our seeds, 2 miles we feed, bleed the same blood that I bleed. We should be the first heroes in our kids' lives, but instead it's a cartoon on every night. We got people in this world praying little boys and girls. Touch my little boy and girl, I wouldn't be at home, I would be in jail with a bill one-way ticket to hell. That's why I teach you how to be weak, teach you how to be a fighter, show them the real meaning by being and do so. And in this world, you will always come from the asshole. Let them know the family comes first and never lie, never put your in a second to a piece of ass. Never give up on your dreams, yeah, that's like me. Reach for the stars, it's only you determine how far you get, what kind of life you live.
It's the reason I'll be the best dad, like the dad that no one ever had. Never be sad and always be glad, a true reflection of the one I had.
Teach him how to be weak, teach him how to be a fighter, show him the real meaning by being and do so. And in this world, you will always come from the asshole. Let them know the family comes first and never lie, never put your in a second to a piece of ass. Never give up on your dreams, yeah, that's like me. Reach for the stars, it's only you determine how far you get, what kind of life you live. What kind of life you live, what kind of life you live, what kind of life you live. What kind of life you live, what kind of life you live.
Welcome, and thank you for showing up to our mandate-free zone today on Unaltered 1776 radio podcast, a station established for the people, small businesses, and patriots of these great United States of America, except white college-age liberals. They suck. You can offer show content by sending suggestions to fatjacksmedia@gmail.com. That intro song was brought to you by Rasta Tone at Backroad Records, and you can download any of their songs for free on reverbnation.com/Backroad Records. I hope you like the song I picked. I got a lot of guff for all the cussing and stuff, so I loaded that one up. You can get any and all of your Unaltered merch by going to unaltered1776.myshopify.com, which seems to be broken right now, but as soon as they fix it, you can click the link at the top of the screen the beginning at the end of each show, and as well as add all of our social media platforms along with any of our links to Unaltered everything. Okay. But if you're tired of being tracked and monitored on the Facegram and Instabook, I suggest wokepatriots.com as a source of freedom and information sharing for the patriot in your family. This broadcast today is dedicated to Ronald McDonald. Yeah, Ronald, you've been the number one clown for 50 years, loved and cherished by so many. But like all good things, it must come to an end. The clown crown now goes to Governor Roy Cooper. Yeah, woo! How about that job security when you get done with politics this November, you mother... Excuse me. It occurred to me this week, we have had just seriously gotten offended. Yes, ladies and gents, I too have fallen victim to the pandemic inside the other pandemic. So this week, as we move on, we really need to step up our antics like the days of old and really make Governor Cooper out to be the clown he really is, As long as we are offended, we're right where they want us, to be honest with you. And I'd like everybody to welcome an awesome friend and an awesome guest. This is our first in-studio guest, Mr. Aaron Deaver.
Now, this dispute over mandated face coverings is the latest in a series of very public outbursts all across the country. And this one happened at a Trader Joe's store in North Hollywood. Eyewitness News reporter Amy Powell is there live with more on the video, and she spoke to customers. Amy, what are they saying?
I'll start over.
Well, we're getting a lot of opinions about this, Veronica. This is opening weekend for this Trader Joe's, and while we've been here this afternoon, everyone we've been seeing entering and leaving the store has been wearing a mask. But of course, as we know, some people have strong feelings about the idea of wearing facial coverings, and as a result,
like all good shows, we realize we just fucked up pretty much the whole front of this show, and that we probably have people watching us and telling us. Well, thank you, viewers, for not telling us that the mute was on this whole time.
Right.
Let's cut past all the exorbitant amount of stuff and just, again, welcome Mr. Deaver to the show. Mr. Deaver is a medical professional and is physically working in the medical field directly associated with the COVID-19 coronavirus. Right. Again, welcome. I know they already saw you. I'm sure they saw your lips move and your head bob a little bit. Yeah, okay. But like any amateur person who just started this for shits and giggles, You know, I screwed up and didn't hit the button.
That's all good.
Yeah, well, shit happens. So anyways, what you were just watching, and we will continue to watch here in a second, is somebody basically white shaming, Karen shaming. It sounded like Karen shaming to me because you can hear him say, "Oh, look, Karen, we got a Karen."
Right.
And so this is Trader Joe's, and they are basically shaming her even though she says she has a medical reason. And according to HIPAA, it is a violation to question anybody past saying I have a medical issue.
Absolutely.
Or other reasons. I mean, there's the HIPAA.
None of their business. Absolutely.
HIPAA actually controls a whole range. So let's continue to watch this, and then we'll get to the specifics.
Hey, all of you! That man harassed me for not wearing a mask. I have a breathing problem. My doctor would not let me wear a mask.
A shopper recorded this incident inside the new North Hollywood store yesterday. The woman angry after being questioned about why she was not wearing a mask. LA residents are required to wear facial coverings when out in public and inside stores and other businesses to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Other shoppers are reacting to the video.
I feel a little bad that people are getting shamed, and she has a medical condition,
Damn
so she
right.
can't wear a mask. On the other hand, we know now that the mask is helping.
And if you could
stop
see
the
this
spread,
video that I'm
so we
watching right
should-
now, this lady has
especially when
pulled
we're in,
up
you
her
know,
mask
lines
like
and
9 times.
places we
As
need to
she
be
talks, it
mindful.
creeps down.
I think you should
She's
wear
grabbing
masks,
it, she's pulling
for
it
the
back
safety of
up.
others.
So
Especially
whatever
for the elderly
contaminants are on that
and
mask
kids
are now on her
right
hands
now the
and whatever else she
rates of
touches from
COVID
that
is
point
going
on.
up.
Yes, yeah.
If it even filtered out the contaminants.
Right?
Right.
We reached out to Trader Joe's for a comment about that incident. We have not heard back yet.
Okay, so we kind of get the point there. Let me find where I was in my notes before I was rudely interrupted by my own physical fault. Let's see. And that's not the beginning. America is livid over the face diaper requirement everywhere, and we've got a compilation.
You are in violation of my constitutional rights.
Across the country, tense moments caught on camera as more businesses enforce new rules to stop the spread of the virus. This customer at a Miami Beach Publix went on an explicit rant after being denied entrance for not wearing a mask.
I'm filing a lawsuit.
Costco announced last week that all shoppers must wear a face covering that covers their mouth and nose at all times. The policy quickly sparking backlash on social media. Seriously considering canceling my Costco membership, going to Sam's Club instead. What a bunch of tyrants. But Costco supporters also took to Twitter agreeing with the safety protocol, writing, "Thank you, Costco, for protecting members and employees with masks." In Michigan, the face mask rule at a Family Dollar store turned deadly. Police say a security guard was shot after getting into an argument with a customer. 4 family members have been charged in connection with the crime.
This was extremely senseless over a mask.
In Alabama, an off-duty officer was seen body slamming a woman at a Walmart when she allegedly refused to wear a mask. It's also getting violent at places enforcing social distancing. Police arrested a 25-year-old who they say pushed a Texas park ranger who was telling a group to stay 6 feet apart. And Oklahoma City police say a woman opened fire when told she couldn't eat inside this McDonald's, injuring at least 2 workers. Because of growing threats of violence like this, one Oklahoma mayor reversed his city's mask mandate.
We didn't have mass protests. We didn't have, sort of the armed vigilante, but we did have, folks at these stores who were put in a really difficult situation.
States balancing safety while trying to get back to business.
Yes, so as you can see, the shaming continues. I don't know what to say, man. So our guest for today, Mr. Deaver, what do you think of all this mayhem of wearing slit-toe face diaper, Mr. Deaver?
I think it's a bunch of nonsense, and not only is it nonsense, in my personal opinion, but there's a lot of science that actually states that it's absolutely nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
And can you elaborate on the science? Because, I've been basically ridiculed as this conspiracy theorist nut. Can you first at least explain your credentials to us right now?
Right. So I've been treating people in healthcare for a little over 13 years. I started back in early 2007. I got my associate degree in applied science, way back in the day, and then pursued my undergraduate in, health science. And am in the process of still furthering my education, of course, as we always should, staying up to date, staying current in the event that you're a healthcare provider. So, in the words of the great insurance agency farmers, I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two.
I agree, and that's mostly because I know you.
Right.
But let me say, you are physically working with the virus right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have a few different jobs, education being one of them, seeing patients directly in a clinic style setting being another one. And one of the ones that I'm really taking pride in right now is I work with a research team, and we'll forgo where, because there's people hunting people's jobs for simple disagreements with them, which is absolute insanity.
Oh yeah, we know about the trolls.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I have been the individual who has been in all their fancy personal protective equipment, swabbing people, having them say to test for COVID-19 directly, not only to try to improve testing methods, but also doing research on treatment versus self-supported care, and some studies that are going through phase 1 clinical trials right now.
So let's to a lot of people, what you just said was a whole bunch of
Right.
Yeah, I put that button in just for today, but
right. So I'm directly involved with research associated with COVID-19.
Okay, that's kind of what we wanted to hear today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, this is not a PC show,
right.
So just kind of take everything I say with a grain of salt.
I got you.
There's a lot of people I intend to piss off, and then there's a lot of people that I just intend to inform.
Sure.
And so when I say things like face diaper, I mean face covering, mask, and such. And so how does the face diaper actually work? Your mask is to protect you from other people or virtue signaling. What is it really?
Yeah, so we have what the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control have instilled into a lot of the politicians, which have in turn instilled into us and made mandates that wearing a mask, you are not necessarily protecting yourself, but you are going above and beyond and doing the heroic act of protecting another individual from yourself in the event that you might potentially be infected and asymptomatically, which I thought this virus was an absolute death sentence. So it's unfathomable to think that most of these cases are asymptomatic. So, but that mask is supposed to protect your virus particles from entering the atmosphere and infecting someone else.
Right.
Okay. But it doesn't protect you in the event that someone else is not wearing a mask and they get particles sent in your direction, which is really confusing to me, how particles can get into the mask, but they can't escape said mask when it's woven the same throughout.
And see, that's my thing is, hey, Kat's going to be our new producer after this show. We literally had to change up everything and re-rig everything to have an in-studio guest. Do we have any of the paper masks inside the house? I thought we had some just inside the house. Will you do me a favor and go check real quick, because I have a science experiment that I would love to conduct, and that is, so what you're saying is that the paper cloth is meant to keep things from coming in?
Theoretically, they're telling people it protects their particles from getting out. It does not prevent viral particles from coming in, but it does protect if they are infected and cough and sneeze into their mask. It's supposed to save the environment from that cesspool of nastiness somehow.
Right. So what you're saying is that if I have COVID and you're wearing a mask, it's supposed to protect you from me, or vice versa?
No. So if you had COVID and we're not wearing a mask, and I was wearing a mask, I would still be susceptible because you're not wearing a mask, is what they're teaching. What they're teaching is if you have COVID and you have on a mask, and even if I'm not wearing a mask, it reduces your chances of exposing me to COVID somehow. Because remember, those particles can get into your mask, but they can't come out. I don't know how that works.
Okay. But you're saying somehow.
Somehow.
Which means
theoretically.
Theoretically, you have a different theory about this.
I have a completely different theory that's backed by the actual science.
What is science?
Right. Something we are not taking into consideration.
That's not the media we're talking about?
Right.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Kat. Look, Kat just brought me the regular mask that everybody uses. And I just want to show you something real quick. Because I thought about this. I'm going to take off my headphones real quick. I thought about this. Vape.
Yeah.
Particulates in this are bigger than COVID, right?
Probably much bigger. Much, much bigger. Absolutely.
I mean, come on, man. How much more do you need?
Absolutely.
You just seen me, like, look, I can still see the vape. I wish I could pull the camera around the room and see how much COVID
is in the room. It's on the air.
We need a COVID vape, man. Can somebody do that for me?
At least you had your mask on, so it's not as bad as it would have been normally, apparently.
Listen, but you felt safer, right?
I felt
a
lot
felt
safer. So much
This is actually the first time I put on a mask. Did I have it in backwards? Which side is the inside?
You had it correct.
Okay,
yeah.
So just so you know that you're not safe mask, if you can see the blue on the outside, that's good. And if you can see the white, it's not. And honestly, I see more people like this.
Right.
Which would, in turn,
right.
according to your first analogy,
right.
protect them from the COVID, right?
It would. Let's turn them backwards.
Like, yeah.
We just had a revolution.
What about, like, diaper rash? That's what I want to know about. Right. All these people I see with the dang, what is it called? The musty, pimply look around their face.
Oh, yeah.
That's how you know who's actually working in the field, because they're wearing it, like...
all the time, yeah. And... honestly, I mean, to talk about these masks and kind of what they're made for. So they're made for these larger particles, you know. The Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, actually, fun fact, had released a statement regarding masks and whether or not people with asthma should wear them, okay? Not only, of course, do they want people to be cautious who have asthma and respiratory disorders while wearing a mask, what they want them to understand is they don't even want them to go out in heavy pollen times of the day because pollen could trigger asthma. Okay.
It's thick.
And if they're wearing their mask, let's talk about the size. Pollen sizes range, I did a little research, from about, I believe it was from about 15 to 200 microns. Okay. 15 microns. And they're telling you that wearing your mask, pollen is still able to agitate you enough for you to have an asthma attack. And that's the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America. You can look this up. It's public. So with that being the case, we're talking about something that is 50 times smaller at 0.3 microns.
Okay.
The viral particle.
Let me pause you for a second because I know a thing or two about microns. I used to work for a Netherlands company, and we, long story short, I know microns.
Right.
So a micron is 1/10 the thickness of a piece of paper.
Yes. 1/10.
So if you could take the paper this way, the flat way, and slice it 10 more times, that is 1 micron. So carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt you there or mess up your thing there.
But just to give people an idea, even if we're going based off of the smallest known size of a simple piece of pollen in the atmosphere, you're talking 15 microns. Okay?
approximately the size of 1.5 pieces of paper.
Exactly. And they're telling you that your mask will not filter it enough to not trigger your asthma. And yet we're supposed to believe that this mask protects from 0.3 micron size particles. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I wish I was that clever with math right now to give you an analogy of how many times you'd have to slice the thin part of the piece of paper to pass through that mask. With that being said, the N95, right?
Yeah.
That is the mask of all masks. You know, it says that it stops the coronavirus at least, 90% of the time?
They try to say greater than 95% of the time. However, there is an N99 that's supposed to filter out
more.
You know, a little more, and there's an N100 that it's like 99.75%. But the N95 is usually the gold standard.
So let me ask you this: if this is the gold standard, and N95 we'll say is the bronze, the N99 would be the silver, and the N100 would be
gold.
the fucking platinum, because obviously it's stopping everything. Right. Why doesn't everybody have one of those masks right now?
Because that mask is not meant to be worn long term. It's supposed to be meant for strictly preventing and lessening your exposure, and the simple fact that to be sure that it's functioning properly, each individual has to be fit tested by an expert.
What?
Fit tested by an expert. Right.
Pump the brakes, bro. You mean that you have to go in and personally have one personally made for your personal self so that it will personally work for you?
And it gets better. Yes, and it gets better. Because not only are there multiple sizes, and each individual's, anatomically unique. We're all unique. We're not built the same way. And my mom told me I had a big head growing up. So, typically I'm going to need a larger mask. But in the event that you have facial hair that's more than a goatee and more than 1/4 of an inch in length, it's still only potential that it could work. Facial hair can obstruct it because it needs a perfect seal, which we saw you blew vape out of all sides of that mask. You know? Honestly, that's what we're looking at. If there's any break in that seal, it's essentially ineffective.
No, what scares me even more is that he does testing and his beard is longer than 1 inch.
Goes to show how worried I am, right?
Do you have an N100 mask?
I do not. So I put my N95 over my beard, and I swab people. That's what I do.
Have you contracted the virus?
To my knowledge, I have not, but you could be asymptomatic.
Have you been tested?
I have not been tested.
Dude, you swab people. You can't just fake a swab or something, bro.
Right.
This is concerning. I'm within 6 feet of this dude right now.
Right.
This is so concerning. Let me put this mask back on.
Well, I need the mask.
Oh, you need the mask.
Well, you turned it backwards. So.
Oh shit! Damn it.
So it works. It works backwards though.
Oh, so I need to put it on backwards.
Yeah.
So I can prevent myself from.
But absolute anathema, man.
It's proper now. Watch this.
Works for me. Still sucking through it. Right.
Hold on. Let me adjust. Because as I talk, it moves around, and I gotta keep readjusting it.
Right.
Which we see on every case of every single person.
All the time.
And that is wearing these, they're adjusting them. What is...
All the time. So what they are essentially doing, in the event that mask did make a small fraction of a difference, okay, they are now taking whatever particles are on that mask.
On the outside.
On the outside, because they're touching them, they're adjusting them, they're moving around on their face.
So pause, because I want this to be this is like Masks for Idiots, the book.
Right.
When you touch this piece,
yes, that
is stopping the potential virus.
Yes, right.
And you adjust it either here or here or here or even here.
Absolutely.
You have now just put the virus that you just stopped on your fingertips
And you're touching your cell phones.
You're
touching your credit cards, your door handles, your steering wheel, your children. You know, you're holding their hand crossing the street.
But they said I was killing children by not wearing them, bro.
Right. Initially, the Center for Disease Control, back around, I want to say it was like March or April, kind of when this thing was kind of, you know, hit us out of nowhere and people were like really freaking out over it. They were telling everyone they didn't need a mask for that reason. They were like, the risk of cross-contamination, you might as well go without a mask because you're going to be touching your face. You're not going to wear them properly, which is exactly what we're seeing now. But somehow, between now and then, COVID has evolved into something different, and we need a mask, you know?
Well, and we're starting to see one of two things. Obviously, since I started doing this show, I started, paying attention more, specifically in certain areas. And we're starting to see boxes that have physical, like boxes of masks that physically have labels that say does not prevent coronavirus. And then the other thing that we're seeing is people being livid that they basically had every symptom of the coronavirus. Okay? And they go to the hospital and it ends up being this infectious pneumonia. And in one specific case, I wish I would have had enough time. I just found it a little over an hour ago. I decided not to put it into the show, but I will add it to the Constitution or Nothing page. And this lady is cussing out Cuomo. And she's like, the doctor had her go in, take off, like do an oxygen test, take it off for 5 minutes, and do another oxygen test, and the test results were almost 20% different.
Absolutely.
20% is a lot.
20% is a lot when you're talking oxygen. It's a lot when you're talking oxygen. I mean, when you have organizations who you're supposed to put your faith in, like the World Health Organization, Center for Disease Control, and they retract, they redact, they recant, all those R words. You know, they sit there and they.
We only know the W's, bro.
Right.
You're gonna have to teach us this.
Right. You know, but they change all these statements, and they're afraid to just look at us and say, guys, there's just a lot about this virus we don't know. First, it was transmitted via hard surfaces, and now it's not. First, it was not transmitted person to person, but via hard surfaces, and now it's, guys, it's strictly person to person. Initially, it was only respiratory symptoms. It was only a bad case of pneumonia. And then it evolved to, now there's blood clots and stomach issues and vomiting and diarrhea involved.
And now it's in the blood. They've found it in the blood.
And then, there's theories out there that I've researched that think that this virus actually attacks the lining of the blood vessels, which is why we see so many issues, in fancy words, so many coagulopathy issues, dealing with the blood and the blood clotting. And, you know, they're saying young people are having strokes because of this, and people are more at risk if they have COVID-19. And it's just there's a lot that they don't know, and I'd have more faith in the people to tell me they're not sure than to retract statements.
So do you pay attention to the CD? Do you look at the CDC statistics at all?
Honestly, I've lost faith in the CDC statistics just because of stories that I know of personally. And I can't put anybody else's information out there, but causes of death were totally unrelated to COVID-19, and they were ruled COVID-19. So I personally feel like, even being involved in healthcare, that a lot of the numbers initially, especially, I don't know about so much now, but initially were definitely fabricated to give COVID the hype that it got coming out the gate.
Yeah, I mean, people were like, car wreck, the COVID caused the car wreck.
Right.
Jumped out of a parachute didn't open. He couldn't pull it because he had COVID.
I mean, they even mentioned, guys, and not to really get on this, but
joking aside, but they really are doing shit COVID-19 like that.
You know, we witnessed officers hold down an individual, okay, and rest in peace to George Floyd. You know, regardless of what his actions were, he didn't deserve to be treated like that. And the autopsy results had balls enough to mention that he had COVID-19. Like it was irrelevant at all. It was not relevant. Okay, what? You just wanted to throw that out there. By the way, we got another case here. Like it's completely irrelevant. They are really reaching with COVID-19. They're reaching.
That's actually the first time I've heard about that. But
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
They said he had COVID-19.
It just goes to show you how they're linking things together and keeping the chaos going, which we'll dive more into. But this whole point of having you drive all the way across damn near the state,
right, a couple hours,
to come talk to people.
Yeah.
And again, thank you so much.
No problem.
Was to try and just get the facts out there. You know, this isn't a fucking conspiracy theory. These are people who work in the medical field. Like, I mean, I know I have other medical friends that have had to shave off their beards just to make sure that their N95 touches their face. And here we have somebody who is directly every day working with the coronavirus. Did they tell you, hey, shave your beard or you'll lose your job?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because
Did they tell you that you have a 2.5 million chance of catching the corona if you don't?
No, I was aware. I was aware of the risk. However, I understand that myself personally. I'm smart enough to know that in the event that I have been potentially exposed to COVID-19, I'm not going to put myself around individuals who would be at a disadvantage if they got it. You know, this virus, we know, attacks very specific individuals. Okay, they've tried to correlate it more so with type A blood, which is why we're seeing some of the younger population have worse bouts with it, even though they're young and healthy, because they have type A blood. Even though they can't really pinpoint that, they just realize a trend in type A blood. Some comorbidities, you know, in the sense that individuals are already experiencing some type of organ failure or they have underlying health conditions, you know, pertaining to bodily functions as far as their organs are concerned, or definitely breathing problems. It's going to hit those people harder, especially if they're older in age. We know that. But so the virus is very real, but the hype is absolutely overplayed. It's overplayed.
Now let me ask you this, and this might be, I mean, it's out there, bro, but I gotta ask you because you're a health professional. They want to switch calling it from the Chinese disease to the Trump disease because it affects more Hispanics. Are you in agreement with that?
I actually, honestly, I'm not sure on the statistics. I know there was information going on. You know.
I didn't mean to catch you off guard. If that's too much for you right now, you just let me know.
I'm not aware. I do know that there was a article that came out that I read once that tried to say it was targeting the African American community more so than a lot of the other minority races.
No. I'll stop you right there. I know for a fact if you go up, and I know you don't 100% agree with CDC, but they've got to have some kind of general basis to even to keep their credibility.
Right.
And right now, between Caucasians and Latinos, that is more than 2/3 of the people who are catching COVID.
Yeah, and my thing is, like, this virus is no respecter of persons. I mean, if I can speak freely, it don't give a fuck who you are, man. Like, it don't care. Male, female, you know, it doesn't care. It can infect you. That's what viruses do. It's not going to evaluate you for specific markers in your life and size you up before it infects you. Like, it's a virus. It's inevitable. The only reason we even quarantined in the first place was to slow the spread of this virus. We knew it couldn't be prevented. It's inevitable.
So it was basically because we didn't really have all the types of equipment to deal with an upper respiratory pandemic.
Right.
And so the initial was to create a slowdown so that we could get those machines built and sent to the hospitals, correct?
Exactly. We did not want to overwhelm the healthcare system like we saw in Italy. You know, Italy had lines of people to where these people would need a ventilator, but if they met a certain criteria, they didn't have the resources. So they'd tell this person, unfortunately, you're going to have to take your chances at home.
And Italy is the little boot on the map. You know what I mean? They're just but a fraction of us.
Right.
So of course that would definitely be, you know, room for alarm.
Yeah.
Let me go on to my next question. Does it have any adverse effects by wearing the mask, like beyond COVID?
So any adverse effects from prolonged mask use, it's all theoretical. You know, I read an article today, actually. I can't remember who it was posted by. I believe it was a university. It was a group of physicians talking about whether or not hypoxia can result from long-term use. And they said theoretically, no, like they haven't done any studies on it. But honestly, this is the first time we've had widespread mask usage. So of course there's not going to be any studies on it.
Right.
And, they talk about how will it put you at risk for infections like pneumonia? And even the physician himself said, theoretically, I guess it potentially could happen, but the likelihood is rare based on the science. But again, we haven't really studied it much. I mean, you have the constant argument that there are doctors and surgeons who wear filtered masks regularly, in the performance of their duties. And we have, we know surgeries can last hours upon hours upon hours. There are legendary surgeries that have taken, double-digit hours, but nonetheless, it's all theoretical. We can't say for sure.
Yeah, but time will tell.
Time will absolutely tell.
So there are so many people in hospitals, right? The dramatic number of COVID has just shut down hospitals, and it basically turned it into zombie land right now.
Right.
Like that's what they're telling us on the news right now, is that all of a sudden these epic numbers are coming out.
Yeah.
But I'm getting mixed feelings about this, because here I know medical professionals like yourself. I know more than just you.
Right.
I'm a public figure myself, so people send me information and stuff like that. I'm also hearing that the doctors and nurses are still being furloughed and cutting hours. How do those two match up?
Yeah, so even in my hometown, I know plenty of nurses who were furloughed. They were threatened to be furloughed. Their emergency department staff who had to be spread to other parts of the hospital just to get hours occasionally. It was, don't call us, we'll call you for work.
Yeah.
And, I had a personal friend of mine actually go to New York when the hospitals were supposedly so overwhelmed there. And it's very true that there were a select few hospitals that were absolutely overwhelmed, and it was, very bad there for a bit. But
one hospital specifically.
Yeah. But this individual, I'm talking, they're offering this person $10,000 for just a couple of weeks of work. Okay, and they never stepped foot in the hospital one time.
Yeah.
Because they were in such demand, and they get there and they're disappointed because they never stepped foot in the hospital.
Wow.
It's absolutely, I don't know, it's just ridiculous that the claim is, in the event, you hear all the time, the cases are rising.
Right.
And they are. They absolutely are. But it's because testing, we have access to testing. Clearly.
So lay it out there, bro.
Clearly, it's
are
been
the hospitals like got people hanging out the windows like 9/11 and jumping to their deaths because?
No, not any that I've witnessed. Nope.
Not
any that I've even heard.
WRAL specifically said
right.
This is the end, basically.
Meanwhile, the area that WRAL covers is one of the hospital had some of the hospitals that were furloughing nurses.
Well, it also covers one that had the most deaths, and we're not going to go into that today.
Right. Well, reported COVID-related deaths had the most reported COVID-related.
But it's
deaths.
one hospital, so you gotta question that.
You
we're not going to question it today, and I'm damn sure not going to put you on the spot. You have a job you need to go back to.
But it was definitely. I mean, I'll go ahead and say this: it was made public, and even hospitals were in concurrence. With the fact that, the statement was made, do hospitals get paid extra for COVID patients on ventilators? And they made public. They absolutely did.
Sure do.
So suddenly everybody on a ventilator was a COVID patient.
And I've also taken clients that are currently, working, and specifically one, and I'm not going to out anybody at all, but this is one of two people that takes the COVID numbers that was like, hey, if it matches the symptoms, hospitals are losing $10 billion a week right now.
Right.
And maybe not so much now, but definitely in those first 3 or 2 months, 8 weeks that they weren't allowed to do those essential or non-essential surgeries.
Right.
They're covering numbers right now.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't even blame the hospitals. So in your opinion,
Yep.
what's the scale 1 to 10 of scary factor in your professional knowledge, and what is the problem solver?
For the virus, like how scary do I think it is, and what do I think the solution
just
is?
the mask, the treatment. Like I don't want you to all. I want you to generally summarize what exactly it's going to take, like in your medical
to eradicate this thing. In my opinion, I like to go based off the experts. Epidemiologists, they study these things. They study these things over an entire educational journey. They study these things for a career. And the epidemiologists point to the best case for us without a vaccine right now to protect the older and the vulnerable population is going to be herd immunity. The problem for that is there's got to be a lot of damn cases of this virus for that to happen, which we are starting to see a lot of cases, and we're starting to see much fewer deaths. So for every positive case that they preach about at record numbers without the death toll to match, it just takes that death percentage much lower.
Here in North Carolina, the news company is specifically suing Governor Cooper because he's withholding numbers. And if you go on the CDC website, you will notice that like that first 8 weeks, North Carolina was at a big fat zero. Yeah. It's because they still file their paperwork manually. And so now that should tell you, if the twisted sister that is working with you to help push your agenda is now suing you for this information, that must mean that the boat you jumped on is sinking.
Sinking, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're taking on water, man. But yeah, I mean, so overall, this virus, it's real. Like I said, it can definitely be, a detrimental thing to some individuals. But if there were precautions that we could take that would prevent it, I would recommend them. But we don't know of any. The mask is not helping.
I mean, everybody went home.
Yeah,
that should tell you that the American people were like, "Oh, we have a major concern. Let's jump on it." I mean, I jumped on that boat.
Yeah, I stayed home except for work. I mean, my work was considered essential because I'm working with sick people. But
yeah, I saw your fucking memes.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't very busy, but but I was working.
Yeah, I mean, some people feel some kind of way about that, but definitely not me.
Right.
So, 2 more questions.
Yeah.
They said 2.4 million dead, but today they can't even get their facts right. Is this the WHO? Is our main problem listening to a world-generated health organization?
The World Health take COVID out of the picture for a minute, and we'll talk about the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization has been known to post controversial stances on various things, whether it was for certain medical treatments or especially even with pediatric medicine. So the World Health Organization has been an issue long before COVID-19, but add COVID-19 into the mix and they show just what a clusterfuck they can be, for lack of better terms. It's because I feel like they are ultimately, like I said before, scared to admit what they don't know.
Well, and you may not know this, but I do, is that just in November they did basically what would be considered a war game of this exact scenario.
What a coincidence, right?
I'm just saying, I didn't know if you had heard anything about that.
I didn't know that.
Actually, the first time that I had heard about it was on Glenn Beck, and he did an entire story about it. But he's definitely not the type of person to report about something until he has the facts.
Yeah, because you can't afford on that stage to be called out without it. Yeah.
3 months before we were practicing, or the who authorized it, I don't know. Maybe it was Bill Gates. So let me go to my online questions real quick, and let's get these out of the way. And because this man is much smarter than just the medical field, so we're definitely going to pry into that. We are rounding our last little bit of the show. Again, I apologize. I'm not a podcaster. I'm just trying to be. So, Chelsea asks, My question for your guest pertains to Governor Cooper's explanation of the face mask. According to his executive order, parentheses, a face covering can be made of a variety of synthetic and natural fabrics, including cotton, silk, linen. Ideally, a face covering has 2 or more layers. A face covering may be factory made, sewn by hand, or can be improvised from household items such as a scarf, bandana, t-shirt, sweatshirts, or towels. These coverings are not intended for use by healthcare providers in the care of patients. This is a 3-part question. How does a towel prevent the coronavirus?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I actually have a fact from the University of Minnesota. But if I wouldn't use it taking care of a COVID patient directly, then that should tell you how effective it is. If they tell you healthcare professionals shouldn't use it if they're going to come into contact with COVID, that should tell you that it's ineffective. Okay?
I'm a tattoo artist. If I was using some homemade fucking shit.
Right. So that alone should tell you that there's an issue. But I'm glad you asked that question. That's great. I'm not even going to answer that myself. I'm going to let people more qualified than me answer this question. April 1st, 2020, this year, April 1st, University of Minnesota had a respiratory expert that said that there was 0 scientific evidence that widespread mask use reduces coronavirus. And I quote, all cloth masks and materials had nearly 0 efficiency at 0.3 microns, a particle size that easily penetrates into the lungs. That was from physicians, respiratory experts at the University of Minnesota in April of 2020. April of 2020.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
So cloth mask, to continue this, sorry.
Oh, go.
Yeah, the conclusion of that study was cloth masks are ineffective as source control and personal protective equipment. Surgical masks have some role to play. And a surgical mask is different from the standard ear loop mask that you have. There's some filtration to a surgical mask. Okay, in preventing emissions from infected COVID patients. And respirators are your best choice. But again, respirators have to be properly fit tested.
Okay, part 2. If they're not intended for healthcare providers, why are regular citizens required to wear them?
I've been asking that question since the start of this pandemic. And if you get an answer, let me know, because I haven't gotten one, especially not from a politician who's far less qualified in medicine than I am.
So, Governor Cooper is literally...
Yeah, exactly.
To all those people that watch South Park, you're laughing your balls off right now,
right.
Or vaginas. Okay. So, part 3, who came up with the 6 foot as the magic number for social distancing?
I want to say that was either the World Health Organization or the CDC, to my knowledge. But I can tell you, you can flush your toilet, and this is you could research this. You can flush your toilet, and just those droplets can go 6 feet. That's why they say to keep your toothbrush or your toilet lid closed. Keep your toothbrush 6 feet from your toilet, because those splashing particles can go up to 6 feet. So if these particles are much smaller, we know if someone's smoking across the room, can you not smell it greater than 6 feet away? Like, I want to know what research that they have that says this virus can only travel 6 feet. And then it's like, oh, too fucking far, man. I need to get back in my territory.
Well, I know when I fart in my house that
Right.
that passes through technically 3 pieces of fabric,
Exactly,
and the whole house
exactly.
smells it. I'm just full disclosure here for you.
Good to know you wear your underlayers, though. Good to know you wear your underlayers.
Yeah, damn right I do. Damn right I do.
But it still does nothing. It's like peeing in a pool. It works the same way the mask does.
Right? I think that people think about it like peeing in your pants. Right? Like the pee stops and you see the pee drip down your pants.
Right. That's how they look at it.
That's not how vapor works.
If I had to put a size
still
comparison,
smell the pee.
Yeah. So to put it into a visual analogy, imagine floodwaters coming your way, and you had an option to build something to stop that flood water. And you decide to build a chain linked fence. Okay? Now, would that chain link fence be great against dogs, small dogs, yeah, some styles of rodents, okay, some other types of animals. It's going to stop those larger things from getting through into your space, from encroaching into your space. But water is just too fine. Will those chain links on that fence be wet? Yeah, they're absolutely going to be wet. So theoretically, you can say it stops some water. But the water is ultimately going to rush through because the fence is just incapable of stopping that. And that's the same way with these masks. It's just incapable of stopping it.
That is the end all to end all. That is the visual. Like, if you have to be fucking retarded to not
to see that.
Get it. Like, shrink it down in your mind. It's a little microscopic fence.
Exactly.
But it's still not stopping anything but bigger critters from getting through.
Exactly.
You're still, if you can still smell my fart in a house wearing a mask, you can still get COVID.
Absolutely.
That's basically what I just got from all.
Yeah, taking away the fact that most people don't even wear the mask properly to begin with. Even if they were wearing it properly, it's still ineffective.
So you're saying that somebody could potentially breathe in my fart, touch the mask, and get pink eye?
Theoretically. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Totally test that right now.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying there's not. I like a lot of the other scientists say, there's not enough studies done on it, so I can't say it's just theoretical
Dude,
for right now.
We should totally launch that. We could be millionaires right now.
Right.
So let's go to some notebook time. In the show, I'm sorry, that's got to me. And so we can show what it's like to have a family member in hospice right now.
88-year-old Nick Avkis and his wife Marion have been through a lot. They've raised 4 children, lost 1 to leukemia, and recently celebrated their 61st anniversary. They were even together every day after Marion entered a nursing home. So their children came up with an idea. Put Dad in one of those cherry pickers, armed with a Patriots mask and a note that said, Nick, he was finally back to face with the love of his life.
The biggest challenge was really getting him in the bucket.
When I got up there, she says, it's dangerous, get back down again.
When he got up top there, they kind of put their hands on the screen of the window. At that point, I teared up.
I asked my wife, Marion, I said, how much do you love me? And she says, more than you know.
When people ask him what the secret is to 61 years of marriage, he says,
I just told him that 4-letter word, L-O-V-E.
What a great story. And you got to love those Boston accents, except when they're cheering for the Patriots.
Nobody wants to hear that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Again, I forgot the mute button. I'm going to have to put like some little sticky note or something. Like, hey, look at the mute button. Is it on? You were just telling me, though, that you have a, family member?
Yeah, my grandmother. My grandmother resides in Indianapolis, Indiana. And she is in a skilled nursing facility, supposed to be skilled nursing facility. They will use that term very, very liberally.
Listen, that's the front lines. Don't be talking shit.
But yeah, so either way, that facility in particular has not been on par in my personal opinion, my professional and personal opinion. But my grandmother was diagnosed with COVID-19, and she is over 70 years of age. She has some mental health issues and dementia related illnesses to where clearly she cannot care for herself. So she's in an assisted living facility. So she actually had to go to the hospital one time. So she went to the hospital one time, and they put her on oxygen for a very brief period of time. It wasn't even high flow oxygen. It wasn't a ventilator, no fancy breathing machine. They didn't have to breathe for her. She just used oxygen intermittently as needed.
And then she died, right? She died.
Right. If by died you meant she was discharged after a day or two and went home and literally was prescribed oxygen as needed, but didn't really use it at the facility, then yes. If that's
so she ran out of oxygen and died.
Yeah.
And was never seen in the hospital again.
Depending on who you ask, yes. Right.
And then you weren't allowed to the funeral, right?
Right. You know, but it was upsetting.
Because the funeral didn't happen because she didn't die.
Right. It was upsetting that they were preventing you from going in to see your loved one who, you know, has an illness that they're preaching is going to kill her and everyone else associated. But, you know, gotta
no. Don't worry about it. Don't tear up on me, buddy. Yeah. You know, I played that because it's all about perspective. Mm-hmm. You know, you see that video and you're like, oh my God, it's like the movie The Notebook. And you're just like, no, the motherfucker had to get an piece of electrical equipment that wires high power lines to see his wife, who he'd always been with. I guarantee you a lot of these older folks, especially our grandparents and even some of our parents would take the latter. Like, they would rather get the COVID together than to be going to such extent. And I think that's our divide, okay? Yeah. Nobody thinks that liberals are really that stupid. I mean, you know, there's some fluctuation there. And we're not going to go into that today. But, you know, the thing is that we have to find common ground, and I think that we are finding it. And I think it's just a matter of not being so damn offended and finding common ground.
By everything.
And I'm starting to see it. Like, people aren't buying the media bullet. You know, they're not eating the shit sandwich that the Democrats or the Republicans. I mean, there's rhinos out there. Yeah. You know. And so with that being said, I hope you'll stick around and do the whole show with me. Did you hear about the BLM protest down in Raleigh yesterday?
I didn't hear about it yesterday. Not yesterday.
I was hoping you'd say that. It was over a statue.
Oh, okay.
They got a whole list going now. But this one was extra special because after my last broadcast last week, they lynched 2 statues and decided to give every black person the day off from the protest yesterday. So check this out.
So, like, I don't even do videos, but, like, I'm here with Shamika at the North Carolina State House, being a nerd. And look, there's a whole, like, Black Lives Matter protest going on in front. I don't know what statue or what the hell. I guess that. I don't know what that is, but they are protesting, but there are no black people. How are we the only black people that happen to stumble upon this Black Lives Matter protest with no black people? This is like
foolishness. Oh, there go one. I'm like, there's one with a little afro.
Okay, there's one. I'm like, okay, but this makes no sense. We were just going to the State House. Well, really, I was dragging Shamika to the State House, being a nerd, because I'm a nerd. In North Carolina, in Raleigh, and there's a whole Black Lives Matter protest, but there are no
black people. None.
This shit is getting over the top liberal as hell. That's crazy. Do overprivileged white college kids really think they can just blow through a BLM event without not even inviting the bees?
I think they forget one thing when they preach about all this privilege, and that's they're also white. You know?
No, they're not.
You know,
they're woke.
Got you. They're woke. I got you.
You're not woke.
I'm using the wrong terminology for them there.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I tried to warn everybody last week that the Democratic Party of old was back in full swing. You know, they no longer need any black voices to speak up, and the corporate entity that is the white BLM movement is happening. What's your thoughts about that? Like, have you heard about the BLM actually donating to Act Blue, which is like all the white Democratic people?
No.
You haven't heard about that?
No, I've not heard about that.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
So when you go on blacklivesmatter.com or .org, or I'm pretty sure they have them all locked up to where when you type it in, it'll link you.
Right
and you hit donate, and you watch that little bar up at the top. Mm-hmm. It says Act Blue. Well, when you go to Act Blue, their primary recipients are Bernie Sanders was number 1.
Of course. Okay.
obviously Crooked Uncle Joe, right?
Of course, Sniffles.
Nancy Pelosi,
Of
the
course.
Democratic
The drunk
convention, and there's not a white person on the list.
I got you.
And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. Definitely go look that shit up because
Oh my goodness!
if you haven't seen that, that's gonna blow your mind.
The Clinton Foundation isn't in there somewhere.
And so, like I said, people are actually being woke, as in they got a fucking clue. It's not called woke. They got a damn clue.
Right.
And in this next one, I was just like, I have to post it. In fact, I couldn't find it on YouTube, so I downloaded it myself, or I did the like screen thingy.
Screen recorded, screenshot
yeah, and uploaded it and did my own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Check this out. This is like for real.
If you vote for Democrats, Black lives don't matter if you vote for Democrats. Move the fuck out of my way. Black lives don't matter if you vote for
blocked her
Democrats.
from
We're tired
going
of you
home.
white liberals always doing some fuck shit. Move out of our way. You guys don't care. You guys, you can thought what you want. I don't give a fuck. I said what the fuck I said. Move the fuck out of my way. My kids are in this car. I want to go home. If you care about Black lives, stop fucking voting for Democrats. You care about Black lives, stop fucking voting for Democrats. You racist white liberals do this shit every fucking 4 years. We're tired of it. We're tired of it. Stop acting like you fucking care about us. You care about us, then take your ass to the abortion clinic. Tell us stop killing their fucking babies. No,
She's
fuck
not
you,
done.
dumb bitch. You're not here for me. You're here because you're dumb as fuck.
She's there because she has been told what to believe by a liberally biased education system.
Well, if you could see the video, I wish I had all this fancy technology. Feel free to donate, by the way. She's being told by a white chick, "We're doing this for you."
Exactly.
And she's like,
"No,
you're
just
not
moronic.
doing this for me.
How are you going to tell me what's good for me?
Right?
You're going to tell me about oppression? Like, you're going to tell me what I'm supposed to stand for?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have enough melanin for that."
And I've been seeing this from day one. That's why I do support Black Lives Do Matter.
Yeah.
There are 1,000 things out there right now that are affecting us in the medical community: cancer, heart disease,
right.
diabetes, all these things. But right now, there's a major concern, and that's COVID. And we're not saying all diseases matter.
Right.
We have now found out that there is a corporate entity. It's not even a nonprofit. It is a corporate entity that is BLM.com.
Yeah.
And so we do support Black Lives,
of course,
but we just don't support BlackLivesMatter.com because we know what it is. It's George Soros.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing. Is I've been trying to tell everybody, I had a good friend of mine post that, they were, against Black Lives Matter. And while they were being, viciously attacked, I like to remind individuals that, especially conservatives, some conservatives have a hard time supporting Black Lives Matter because they think it's related to the movement. But no, you can acknowledge that a black person's life matters, okay? And that it should not just be slaughtered for no good reason, regardless of what the cause. Their life absolutely matters. You can acknowledge that without supporting the fundamentals and the foundations of the Black Lives Matter movement, which are eliminating police, total anarchy, which anarchy defined is literally the absence of something controlling them. Okay? So that you can support Black Lives Matter and say that Black Lives Matter and acknowledge that without supporting violence and looting private businesses and burning them down. Yes, you absolutely can do that. It's okay to acknowledge it.
And like I try and tell people all the time, I was born and raised, my father was in the military. Right. There were the equivalent of the military projects. I mean, all these military, it was definitely a melting pot inside of a very, very, very small, forge when it comes to military communities. But, nobody in the military is getting paid like uber amounts of money. My dad happened to be a single dad of three boys.
Right.
We didn't have money that went everywhere. And so, driving around, most of my friends growing up were predominantly black or mixed because they just came from everywhere around the world.
Right.
And I couldn't hesitate to tell you that every time we saw a police officer roll by in Lawton, Oklahoma, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, we watched that motherfucker until he was gone to make sure he wasn't going to turn around and get us.
Right.
And a part of that has to be cycled back into why. And so we are definitely for it. We're definitely for the fix. We're definitely for the peaceful part of it.
Right.
And we can't wait for the day that the whole, hey, I'm going to drop off this pallet of bricks over here by this riot area finally comes out. Because,
exactly.
Dude, I've been part of the reason that I started doing this, one was because of my friend David, which we'll get to. The other part was just the investigative part of it.
Right.
Who's behind this?
Who's
Why?
behind it?
Why is it I'm watching my own friends who are Latino in descent jumping into fires in Raleigh, like burning buildings and finding the fire extinguisher and putting it out? But I'm watching these white college fucking kids,
Antifa paid dumbasses, act crazy. And honestly,
by day two, I was like, hey, can I pay somebody to go up there and get some license plates?
Right, just figure out what's going on. Some IDs from these people, pickpocket them, because, there was a picture that went viral, and it shows a white law enforcement officer in his riot gear standing by at the protest in Minnesota, where, of course, everybody has the right to protest and unjust, unlawful killing. But this officer was just strictly doing his job, man. He had to be there or else he couldn't feed his family, okay? But arm in arm was a string of individuals there peacefully protesting, and these were black individuals who were arm in arm protecting this officer from the violence of the white anarchist idiots who were lighting fires and trying to harm them. The individuals who were there, who really gave a shit about George Floyd, okay, were not profiting off the back of his death. They were there to actually protest injustice and to protect the very officer who they knew was doing his job from the white paid Antifa anarchists who were sent in to Minnesota.
Oh, man, it is definitely deep, and I wish I could have you here every day with me just because I've seen some of your antics and I love them.
Right.
But
I try.
So let me tell everybody, thank you for hanging in a little over time. Don't forget that we have our Bullhorn Activism Day tomorrow at 11, 110 East Jones Road, Raleigh. Look for the old red Ford pickup truck with the flags on the back. It's a parking lot. It's right next to the governor's mansion. We intend to wear masks. It is not required to attend. Speaking and standing is, though. We want you guys, if you want to use my bullhorn and give them a piece of your mind. We intend to visually make fun of the mandate in costume. And so I'll have my Rocky on, and I wanted to ask you, bro, I have this mandated mask here.
Yeah.
Do you think this will protect me?
Yeah.
It makes my neck look small.
It's equally as effective as the cloth mask, so absolutely.
I painted this myself, man.
Right.
It's gangster shit right there.
It's good artwork. Yeah, it's like you're an artist or something.
So on a serious note, anyone who might be suffering from depression right now, I want you to keep the fight alive. Reach out to me or anyone that you trust. We need you in this world. Please, to anyone who knows somebody that's in this category of life, please help them. Help someone who asks and needs somebody to stand next to him for bracing. My friend David Akmoudi died 5 weeks ago. He took his own life. He was a good man with not enough help, and I alone couldn't help him. And so I will forever on this show speak his name. He was, there was a lot that could be done, and I just didn't know what to do to help protect him and to prevent it. And I just didn't know where to go. Well, I want you to know that the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. That isn't just for people who are looking to jump off a building and want to call somebody and give them their last note. That'll actually help you help them and get the resources they need. Again, it's 273-8255. I want to give a big, huge shout out to Mr. Deaver here for coming all this way, to come do this show and just kill the void, man. We started this show because media isn't doing the job anymore,
Right.
and we need real
Legitimate
people
sources.
out there that are actually swabbing mouths every day.
I'm in the fight, man. I'm in the fucking fight.
Come on,
I'm
man.
in the fight, dude.
Would you say the front lines,
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah. I'm in the fight. So I know what's up.
So also a big, huge shout out to Bo and Dysfunctional Veterans, the DV Farm. If you're a soldier and you've fallen down the wrong path, you were built to be a soldier. So you need to be able to make the step. You need to make the commitment that you're ready to be done. And when you're ready to be done, I want you to hit up DV Farms. And they're going to give you a brand new start, man. So definitely check them out. Huge shout out to Dan Bongino, American Patriot. He's still fighting the good fight. For I would never have this platform if I'd never met him. Kerry Donovan for always, trying to tell my story behind the lines. Keep up the great work. And last but not least, to our listeners, keep making the stand, Patriots. We will have our day. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to or thank before we end the show today?
No, definitely just thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate you inviting me out here to share some knowledge. And, if people want to wear their mask, wear their mask. The issue I have is when you tell me that I absolutely have to, If it's a privately owned business, that's a privately owned business. You have the right to ask me to wear a mask, and because I would ask you to abide by my rules in my home. But to make it a mandate is absolutely, there's no clause in the Constitution that states if there's a pandemic, it goes out the window. So just thanks.
I mean, we are a Constitution or nothing page.
Right.
But you came here as a scientist. Like, that's the first time I heard you say anything about the Constitution.
Right. I came here to speak science. It's a given, and you know this because you know me. It's a given. I'm for the Constitution. I'm all for the Constitution, support the Constitution. We are a constitutional republic. That is exactly what we are. And those are the laws that we must be governed by. And unfortunately, that's not been the case lately.
Yeah.
So we got to make that change come November.
Well, we're fighting, and we're hoping that everybody stands and does the right thing.
Right.
Again, please come out. We would love it that you come out in costume. Obviously, some people on the right, our side, are butthurt about putting on a mask, but this is in what do you call it?
Protest seems to be a common word.
Well, no, I mean it's definitely in protest,
No.
but it's in good fun. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mockery. You gotta
stop being offended.
Yeah.
Have fun with it.
Absolutely.
I mean, when we were in high school, when somebody was like, "Listen, I got this really good idea," and it was really a bad idea, we were like, "Dude, go for it."
Right.
In fact,
let's see it.
I'm gonna do one too, and it's gonna be like this. And
they're gonna videotape it,
right? And the person would just be like, "No, man. Now that you put it that way, it's not a good idea."
Right.
And so we're gonna sum it up today. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, Mr. Deaver.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Y'all, we're gonna hang around. We're gonna see what you have to say in the comments, and if not, definitely comment below when we post this on our page. Y'all have a great afternoon.
See you.
Right here in the dirty South, right quick to run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South, the bitch don't run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South. Right here in the dirty South. I met Lucifer one day at the crossroads, man. That bitch was clean pulled up in the caddy sedan. First thing I saw was them gators skin boots.
you know we coming for all. Every time I walk by, I make you feel small, cause this is me and I'm 10 foot tall, always ready to ball. Started to walk, never learned how to crawl. Backward boy, and you know we living hard. Should've took my name and turned it into a boulevard. Cause right here in the dirty South, you get quick to get popped in your mouth. Yeah.